John, welcome to Orange Perspective Podcast. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing lovely, although it is really cold out today.
It's terribly cold.
Man, Kentucky. I think everybody always says that their weather is weird or it's changing or whatever, but seriously here we have like what some people call a second winter.
That's what it feels like.
Are you familiar with that? It's like
a little bit. Yeah, I think like Kentucky and Ohio, they're kind of like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like we got it warmed up. And my wife and I decided to go to Florida, for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get the cold spot. So, when it was cold, we wanted to go down to Florida. Mm-hmm. And we did that sort of, but while we were gone, it was warm. We come back, and then it was like second winter. There is absolutely no way around that. Well, I'm so glad that you're on this podcast with us today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, anytime, John. You are by far the most beloved individual in our entire company. And I'm sure that right now... Yeah, people all over the place. Like, yes, people right now are hearing your name and seeing you on the video, and they are standing and applauding. And where does this come from? You think?
I don't know, man. I really don't. I have no idea. I think it's because I don't want it that everyone's like,
ooh,
now we gotta like.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I have a theory. I think, a couple things. Obviously, you are one of the nicest guys that I know. Period. And I know a lot of nice guys. But, we work here at the warehouse, and there's not a ton of nice people. No, I'm just joking. But you're one of the nicest guys that I know. You lead with a sense of confidence, but also with humility. And I think that those two things are very unique, but also make you stand out. And I think people just love to follow you. Love to be around you.
Well, I appreciate that.
I know I do. I feel inspired when I'm with you.
Oh, man.
Anyway, let's talk about what you do, John. Okay. So what's your role here at the warehouse? And then let's talk about how you got to that role.
Yeah. So I am the director of like site logistics, head of quality control. So pretty much what that means is like we try to ensure the guest experience from like gameplay, like store location, like make sure everything looks good from that end. So it's a lot of looking through and kind of analyzing the games in terms of like what we can fix, what we can like walk someone through, how to do, and a lot of problem solving, a lot of troubleshooting and things like that, trying to get to the root cause of things. A little bit of like help organizing, like maybe like a contractor comes down and helps out with something. And then we, at the beginning of this year, we started doing the support role.
Yeah.
So having someone kind of like full-time intentionally doing that over like the weekends or later hours.
I mean, before we had support.
Yeah.
We had support, but what did it look like? It was not that organized.
We did. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We did, and it was like the tech guys, and it was kind of like, oh, let me grab this, let me help out with this, or so it
was on the side. It wasn't like someone focused on it.
Yeah, it wasn't someone focused. So having that, I think, has been a huge help. I mean, I'm sure managers can attest to that, but that has been super cool to have that option,
Whereas before, it was kind of like it was always done on the side. It was somebody that was doing something else, and then they would have to stop what they're doing and help somebody. But now we have Allison, who is focused on that 100%, and someone answering the phone and chat and all of those things, like on nights and weekends, which we did not have before necessarily. Yeah. It was always secondary. So you've solved that problem, and I think it's been a huge help. And then the quality control piece is what you really came on doing a few years ago and have become an expert in it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the like just starting that process and
like what it goes into quality control and why that's important.
Yeah, I think so like what went into it when we first started is just figuring it out, right? Like let me figure this out, and then establishing like priorities and
like what are you trying to figure out when you're thinking about quality control?
Yeah, I think like what we can do to make the guest experience, like give them the experience that we intend to give them, is always like the intention, right? So if something doesn't feel right or something's like way kind of maybe skewed off from that experience is like, well, we need to change that.
Yeah.
So that's always the intention. That's always the purpose. And then figuring out everything else for that, behind that, has been the little details has been an adventure for sure. But and then also trying to do that for all the locations and figuring out a system that like works for them as much as it works for us, has been an adventure too. So, yeah, I think that that would be like the purpose, right? And then figuring out those details, it's something that we just have to tackle like kind of day by day. Like some people have issues that maybe we're not so super familiar with, and some people may have issues that like, oh, well, you just do this, that, and the other, and then you should be good to go, kind of
right.
thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that, I mean, quality control sounds very boring, but it's not a boring job.
I wouldn't say so, no.
It's not a boring department at all, and it is very important. I think you've highlighted why is because the guest is the center of attention there. Yeah. And if we break those two words down, one is the quality. We want excellence in everything. And then in some way controlling for that. Not controlling in an authoritarian way. You don't go in, I don't think so, like a dictator.
I don't think so either.
No, it's not what that means at all. It's more of controlling for the quality and excellence that we're shooting for in every guest experience, because that is what we're about. Yeah, on every level with all of our brands is
absolutely
walking through. So you become a very essential linchpin for everything that we do. You don't agree?
No, I do agree. It's been an interesting ride for sure, but it's just I just always find it funny that you describe it as such. Yeah, I think it's funny. So. Very
essential. So, what did you do before you started working with us?
Before Breakout?
Yeah, before Breakout, before you knew us and Orange Consulting. What did you do before?
Yeah. So I was in the military, and I did 6 years in the Air Force.
Did you go straight from high school into the military? Or?
So I did like a semester of college. I had like a small scholarship to community college in Dayton, and I sat in class for like 2 weeks, and I was like, this isn't for me, man.
College was not for you.
No, it wasn't for me. And I think that was like, I was at a time in my life where like I wanted something, but I didn't know what it was. Like I wanted something in my life that I just didn't have, and I felt like it came to a point where I felt like the military could provide it, and I think they did, was just like providing perspective and just like a greater understanding that I'm very ignorant of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're young and like when you just become an adult, like not saying that most people are like this, but when I was young, I felt like I knew everything. And the military,
I think everybody's like, I've got kids. I know. Everybody's like this. Yeah. They all think they know everything. So.
And then you jump into a military world, and it's very different. So. So yeah, I did that for 6 years. I was a command post controller, which is pretty much like you receive and disseminate information for the base commander. So it was a lot of like we would get reports, and then we would notify the people that needed to know about that stuff and send reports up to higher headquarters, whether that be the MAGCOM or the group or the head of like the Air Force, right? Like the those kind of entities. So it was a lot of like little things that have been tacked on over the years, like flight following and just like little reports here and there. And then, but the big reason why that job exists in the Air Force specifically is they have the thing called Emergency Action Procedures, EAPs. So like, let's say the president wanted to like issue a certain like DEFCON with detailed instructions.
What is a DEFCON?
Like DEFCON 5, DEFCON 1. Yeah. So it's like certain statuses that we put ourselves in defense, like defense conditions.
Okay.
I think
DEFCON 5 is like really high level.
DEFCON 1 is the highest.
Okay. 1 is high, 5 is low.
5 is low.
So if we're in DEFCON 1, someone's attacking us?
Yeah, someone's doing something pretty bad. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. I'm trying to remember, like, there was a particular situation when we went to DEFCON 4, but I don't remember the exact thing. But it wasn't like, that's not like a huge step. You know what I mean? But the details of that is confidential. It's usually like, at least secret. like classified as a secret material. So we would take that, we would deconstruct it, and then we would give that to usually the base commander, or like we call them emergency operations centers. So it had like very important people in each department, and then like here's the directive, and this is what we need to do, kind of thing. So that's like the main thing. That's like the main importance of that job. Wow. So,
man, sounds pretty important.
Yeah, I think it's like it feels like it is when it's happening, but like your day to day is like, you're doing reports and like little things here and there.
It doesn't feel important.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel important in the moment. And this is also coming from I was a young guy, so it's just like, I guess this is how I do it. And then when you get to important stuff, that's when you feel the scope of like the job, for sure.
So that was the like first 6 years out of high school. Is that what you said?
Yeah, just about
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, what transpired?
Yeah, so I decided to get out, and then
what made you decide to get out? Can we pause there?
Yeah, we can. I think it was at a point where, for me, I got really curious about if I stayed in. So it's like 6 years, and then when you re-enlist, it's usually 4 to 6 years, right? And everyone that's in the military will tell you, like, once you do 10, you might as well do it for life, because you're 10 away from your retirement. So in my mind, it was like I can re-enlist and commit to this for the next, 14 years plus, or I can get out and just see what happens, and that was super scary, but also like exciting to like, well, let's just see what happens, man. Yeah. What would happen? Because another thing is too is like a lot of like military guys that I've talked to, when they start talking about that stage, you get really nervous, because it's like the military is a very different world, like there's things that you just don't have to worry about in the military, in comparison to like, like running a business and stuff like that. Like you have to think about all these things. Where in the military, if you're like, if you're a boot on the ground guy, you don't have to worry about that stuff. You're just like, I'm going to do this job and I'm going to do it the best of my ability. So I think it was like maybe like 3 or 4 years in, I was like, man, this is becoming more and more enticing. And then I got my second duty location. And I was like, okay, well, I need to like, I'm probably going to get out. My second duty location was San Angelo, Texas.
Okay.
And it's like it's a air education training command base. So it's like training. So it's very boring. It's a very boring mission in the respective of the job I was doing.
I got you.
And then I did a deployment in Honduras, which that was really cool. Looking back on that experience, I appreciate it a lot. But at that point, it was like, let me see what happens. Let me just go out there, see what happens. And
so what happened? So you leave, what happens?
Yeah. So I took a few months off because it was the first time I had no responsibility.
Oh,
like, wow. That's what it felt like.
How'd you spend those few months?
I went to go see a buddy in Phoenix, and then I drove up into Colorado and hung out there for like 2 weeks, I think.
Nice.
And then I went to saw an really old friend in like Kansas City, and I hung out with him for a little bit, and then just ended up driving back up. So all in all, it was like, I think it was like 2 months driving back home. And then there was a few weeks where I didn't really do too much, just like hang out with friends, catching up, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up going to college, Wright State, for what ended up being a semester. But
that's in Dayton, right?
Yeah, that's in Dayton. And then once I started that, I was like, I need a part-time thing. And I remember finding Breakout on Facebook.
Okay.
And I remember like, man, this is kind of cool. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to apply for this. Yeah.
Had you played an escape room before?
No, never played.
You just like looked it up and you're like, that sounds pretty cool.
I think the Facebook ads like got me, man. It's just like came up.
Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Do you remember what they said that got you? Like what made you curious about working at escape room?
I think like just like never seeing anything like that before, because I mean at that time it was like 2015. It was still like new.
Really new.
Yeah, it's still really new. So, and to see that in like Dayton's not like nowadays, I would say after like going back there every once in a while, I would say Dayton's like pretty interesting, but like the Dayton I remember wasn't like,
was not.
Yeah, it was not. It wasn't boring. You know, there were things to do, but it wasn't like it was like quintessential like Midwest. Like there's not that much.
Yeah.
There's not much enticement, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started Breakout. That was your entrance into working with us.
Yeah.
Walk us through that journey of how you got here then.
Yeah. So I remember.
You were a game master.
Yeah, I was just a game master. Yeah. I remember like maybe in a week and a half. I remember talking with Isaac, like, man, I'm ready to commit. Like,
was Isaac managing there at that point?
Yeah, he was managing the store.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just remember like I'm ready to commit. You guys are growing. I want to grow with you guys. Like that was kind of like the gist of it. And then I think it was later that year where you guys are talking about expanding. So there's like more locations opening up. And I remember talking with Isaac and eventually talking with you about like managing a store, and we ended up doing like the whole like Columbus. Right.
You moved to Columbus, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I managed that for the first year. And then I remember talking with Brad Greenman about Milwaukee because they wanted like a little bit of a change and wanted to help out that store. And I remember talking with Brad over dinner, and I remember he's kind of sort of pitching me Milwaukee, like Milwaukee's cool city, blah, 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 blah. And that's all great. But I remember I was like, man, I really want to work at the warehouse. Like, that's what I want to do. So it's like, well, I can't guarantee you that. It's like, that's fine. But if you could put my name in a hat, I'll do it. You know, like that's all I wanted.
Okay.
And so we did Milwaukee. We did that for a while. And then I was brought on with Isaac to do room installs. So I did almost all the runaway trains. I think like maybe 3 or 4 I didn't do.
Yeah.
So I did runway trains, and then I moved up to regional director. So I did that for, I want to say like a year, So, and that was always really interesting because it's like, I remember like we would sit with other regional directors. I felt like the dumbest guy in the room.
Why?
Well, it's because like you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have.
I guess.
So, and I mean that in a very good way, where it's like I was trying to get as much knowledge and try to understand like everyone's perspective and things like that, and I appreciate that. And then COVID happened. We went through all that, got furloughed, everything. And then I was brought back on to manage Lexington.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that, man.
So I managed Lexington. I think it was like August to July.
Yeah.
And then I was brought back on with Isaac to do some more room installs, and at that time we were doing Clues, and we did Gatlinburg. I think that was like, I remember I think the week after I started back over on this side, it was like Gatlinburg. And then I think at the end of that year we started talking about quality control, and we've been doing this for
a couple years.
Yeah, a year and some change, I think. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you, from the very beginning, wanted to end up here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think made you say, okay, I'll go to Milwaukee, and that's going to be the path to Lexington? Like, what made you want to move to Milwaukee if you wanted to get here? I think this is a big question for a lot of people. Like, how do you move up in the company? What do you do to like be noticed, or all of those things? How do you see that?
I think a lot of it came down with like for me was like, if there was the opportunity to put my name in a hat, like wherever the result may be from that, it might be worth it in my mind. And for me, like being in the military, being a military kid, like moving around wasn't a big deal to me. It was like, it's just a few hours drive, and
felt pretty natural.
Yeah, it felt natural.
Yeah.
And I think Milwaukee was really interesting to me because like managing Columbus and then moving over to Milwaukee, different environment, different store, different like location. It was like, maybe I can take this as an opportunity to like learn the things I've learned in Columbus, apply it here and see how that works. And maybe like hone that knife a little bit, of like the leadership skill and capability. So the part of that was like a test for me, and then also, I think it was like building trust. I think is like really important. So,
you were building trust.
Yeah.
Like you were demonstrating that we could trust you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I think like, trust. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but trust. I think trust is like super important, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Like I think, because in my mind, the way I saw it back then was like you guys didn't really know me like super well. You knew that I was managing Columbus and doing all that, but like to step out of my comfort zone a little bit to show that like, if you asked me to do something, I could do it, was kind of like maybe my intention. And I think that there is a high value, not just like within this but just any organization, there's a high value of trust, to be able to be like, hey, I need you to do this thing. Do you think you'd be able to do it? And it's like, yeah, I could figure it out for sure. You know what I mean? So to kind of like put myself there was I feel like a lot of intention was within that like thought process.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And I think that the way that you got here was that you built that trust by saying, if you want me to do something, I'm in. Yeah. We came to you because we trusted that you could go to Milwaukee and make that store like revamped and refurbished, and we had some issues there, and we needed a change. And so we came to you and said, hey, we think you would do a really good job. It doesn't have to be permanent forever, but we think you could do a really good job at changing this store around. And you just said yes. Mm-hmm. And I think saying yes and stepping into those roles is the way to, one, build trust. And I think that is what we're looking for across the board. Yeah. And then eventually what we looked at to say, hey, John, you have demonstrated this, that you can do this, that we trust you. Can you come and work at this higher level with us? Yeah. But you had to kind of earn that at the beginning. And I think some people want to skip that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I think it's so easy for us to want all of it without doing the hard work to get there. Mm-hmm. And instead of just plugging away and doing what you're good at, and being able to like say yes here, and it's never a clear path, I don't think, from A to B to C. It's like all over the place. Yeah. But you have to have the vision in mind of being able to say, I'm just going to step in and fill the gaps. Yeah. And the book that we always referred to is Impact Players, and I think you're an impact player.
I try to be.
You are. You definitely are. Well, I want to jump into some personal questions, but I think we have a segment first that we're gonna add. That is okay. This is a new segment that we've never done before. Okay. We're gonna call this Airplane Answers.
Airplane Answers.
Yeah. Okay. Paper Airplane Answers. Okay. There's a question on here that I have not seen yet that I'm gonna ask you, and you have to answer.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Tell me about your acting career and any praise you may have received.
Oh man.
Tell me about your acting career.
That's funny. When I was in high school, I did a lot of like school plays and things like that.
Well, okay, a lot. Let's say how many? What'd you do?
I did 2 plays a year. So I did the spring and the winter.
One was a play. Was there a musical involved?
One of them was a musical.
Did you sing?
I did.
Did you dance?
I did.
Oh my, this is amazing. I don't think I knew this.
Yeah, it was called Thoroughly Modern Millie.
What?
It was called Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Okay.
The musical.
The musical. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know that musical.
And I remember like I got kind of like hog-tie into it.
Oh.
Because at first I didn't want to do it. It was my senior year. I didn't really want to do it. And then like everyone's like, you have to do it.
So your whole life, people have wanted you to be at the center of attention.
I guess so. I don't know about that, but
they did, and you just always avoided it. So you said yes.
I said yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is in reference to my junior year. We did Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh yeah.
And which is a great play. It's a great play, and that was definitely like out of my comfort zone for sure. But Nancy Cartwright she went to that school.
Okay.
And I guess she knew the drama director, like sort of, kind of, maybe. But she came up and she did like a little visit and a presentation for the school, and then she watched our play, and I remember afterwards walking up to my director and then realizing that was Nancy Cartwright, and she was like, "Man, I thought you were really great." And I was like,
"Wow,
man, I felt really good." For anyone who doesn't know, she does the voice of Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
So she does a lot of Simpson stuff.
So she told she thought that you did a really good job.
Yeah.
And then you were just like, "I'm hanging it up. I'm done." Like that should be encouragement to keep going in this direction.
Well,
John.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think like there was definitely like promise of like when I was younger, like this is something that I would want to do.
Yeah.
But I think like just other things came up, whereas like I really want to like know the world a little bit more. And I think that's when like the military kind of came in.
Okay.
And then it was like that was like the road that was set for me for a while. Maybe I'll go back. I don't know.
Man, you should.
Yeah, I'm probably real rusty. I'll do something with Molly. Maybe
Oh yeah, Molly.
Yeah.
You and Molly could do a play or a musical together.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we did. I remember when I was a freshman, when I was a freshman, I was going to school in military base in Korea. They have this thing called Far East tournaments. So all the military bases kids, like from the high schools, they would like do tournaments in certain places. So one of them was drama.
Okay.
And we did it in Okinawa, Japan. And we did a reader's theater. And I thought it was going to be like really bad. And we got gold. We got gold for it. So that was kind of cool.
Man.
Yeah. That's a deep cut.
You got some hidden gems in there in your past.
Somewhere, yeah. Somewhere,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you bring all this to the table, which is why you're the most beloved of Orange Consulting.
I don't know.
I believe. Tell us before we end. Tell us where you're heading in the next 5 to 10 years. Where does John want to be?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think, to put it simply, just like continue striving for just like really good things. Happiness is cool, man. Yeah. Try to keep that stuff simple. But I think it would be really cool if we were like all in a position that is, the way I think of it is like where we're at now, and like that times 2, times 4, whatever that looks like, just like in a better position than we are today. I think it would be sweet.
So you say we. So you assume you're going to be with us. You're not leaving us.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and have you sign a contract, John.
All right, we'll sign it right here.
For the next 5 to 10 years. We appreciate that. And we appreciate having you around. And thanks so much for being on the show. Before we leave, do you have any advice? Mainly, you have young leaders, managers, people listening to this. This is an internal podcast. Any advice that you want to give everybody?
Yeah, I would say one thing that when I was really young, I was scared of doing, that I think is perfectly healthy, and I think is a good thing to do, is reflect on like the positive things, reflect on like the negative things as well, in the sense of like learning from your mistakes and learning like the lessons of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are things that I reflect on, like, like early on in my military career, that I reflect on now. That's like, man, I got a lot out of that, a lot more than I thought, kind of stuff. So reflection is a good thing.
Reflection on the good and the bad.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That's really good advice. Well, thanks so much for being on here, John. And hopefully in 5 years, we're just doing another podcast episode, and we're just talking about what happened the last 5 years and what's going to happen the next 5 years, right?
That'd be cool.
What'd you say? We're going to double, triple, quadruple our size?
Our happiness.
Our happiness.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, well, that's size. No, I'm just joking.
Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, hopefully those two go together.
Yeah.
We're just a lot bigger and a lot happier.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it'd be awesome.
Well, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.